although the book is called The Other Queen, it's about Mary Queen of Scots. It's not the way a lot of other people have written about Mary Queen of Scots. It's not her time in France. It's not even her disastrous time in Scotland. Mary enters the novel as an absolute fugitive. She's cut her hair short. She's been running away from the Scottish army for 3 days. She's been living on nothing but oatmeal and water. She's been riding like a runaway page boy, and she's just arrived in England, expecting to find sanctuary from her cousin Queen Elizabeth I, expecting to be returned at once to the throne of Scotland, which is what really should have happened. When I was growing up, there was a really powerful view that Mary Queen of Scots was the beautiful one, was the one who fell in love with unsuitable men, was the one who was doomed by her own, in a sense, folly and stupidity, a kind of Marie Antoinette kind of person, French, of course, Roman Catholic, of course, as opposed to sensible, virginal, Protestant, good ruler, Elizabeth I. Well, this is totally wrong, actually, about both women. I mean, Elizabeth herself was very giddy, very guided by her heart, very confused at times. And Mary clearly was a very sensible, astute politician, a woman determined to be Queen of Scotland, a woman who saw it both as her duty and, in a sense, what she was born to, her obligation to be Queen of Scotland, and that it was God had called her to be Queen. She had to be Queen. Well, the book's called The Other Queen because, in a sense, she's the alternative queen, and we don't realise that as much as we should, because history always is written by the victors, and we only remember their version of it. So we know that, in the end, Elizabeth I forces herself, screws her courage up, really, to behead her cousin, Mary Queen of Scots, and the story ends in tragedy and defeat. But if you had been there at the time, it's what I'm always saying, if you had been there at the time, you wouldn't have known that was how the story was going to end. And indeed, half the country was Catholic. Therefore, probably about half the country would have supported Mary Queen of Scots. She had the biggest rebellion that the Tudors ever faced. The whole of the north rose up and marched for Mary Queen of Scots. And some historians of the rebellion say it was a greater threat to Elizabeth's reign than the Armada. But because the Armada is such a huge and heroic story, that's the one that goes into the history books. And the Great North Rebellion is one of Englishmen against Englishmen for, you know, the support of Mary Queen of Scots and the Catholic religion. And so the Tudors very much suppressed it, suppressed the news of it at the time, put it down with immense brutality, and it was a failure. But it's a story, it's a war that's hardly told in the history books. I think the historical novel is something that comes in and out of fashion. You know, with my first historical novels, I started experimenting with a way of writing historical fiction for the modern reader in a very lively way, very, very accessible, nothing stuffy about it, nothing at all feeling like false history about it. The research absolutely there, the research guiding and informing the story, but being very light of touch, no kind of heavy library moments in it, and fundamentally an absolute focus on the stories of women and on the stories of the unknown people. So in a sense, it's a people's historical fiction. I really never expected to be writing in the Tudor period for as long as I did. I really thought I'd write The Other Boleyn Girl and then I'd go back to another period of time, and I've just been fascinated by the Tudors for so long. I mean, one book has just naturally led me to want to find out more about another, and now I'm coming across people's children, or so I kind of greet them like friends. So, you know, the counsellors occur, the names occur, the families occur. It's a fairly small world, and I'm starting to be very familiar and comfortable in them. It would be a pleasure to write more Tudor books, and I'm sure I will. But the next book I'm going to write, I'm going, in a sense, back in time a little bit, back to the first Tudor who arrives, Henry VII, and then beyond him to the Plantagenet family. So I'm going to do the Battle of Bosworth, Richard III's defeat at the Battle of Bosworth, and his nephews, the princes in the Tower, and his brother, Edward IV. So it's a fascinating family. The big question for me will be whether people who love the Tudors will learn to love the Plantagenets, but I'm betting on that. I think people will. I think they're, again, a very high-living, full-blooded, dramatic, exciting family, and I think people are going to love them.